Beneath the quiet town of Kutna Hora in the Czech Republic stands a chapel unlike any other in the world. Its walls, ceilings, and chandeliers are not decorated with stone or paint, but with human skeletons, tens of thousands of them. To visitors, it is a bizarre attraction. To historians, it is a puzzle. But to those who know its legends, the Bone Church is far more than an artistic oddity. Some believe it hides a secret, one that was never meant to be spoken, and one that could still haunt the world if it were ever unleashed. At first glance, the chapel looks like a small, unassuming structure. Built in the 14th century, its exterior is plain, almost forgettable compared to the grandeur of Europe's cathedrals. But the moment you step inside, everything changes. Rows upon rows of skulls stare back from the walls, stacked into towering pyramids. Rib bones form garlands that circle the ceiling like a crown of death. A chandelier dangles in the center, glimmering in the dim light. Built entirely from human bones, every bone in the human body, replicated piece by piece. Tourists often gasp in awe or shudder in unease. But the deeper story of how this place came to be is far darker than any guidebook reveals. Begins with a monk who returned from Jerusalem in the year 1278, carrying with him a handful of soil from Golgotha, the hill where Christ was crucified. He scattered it across the cemetery of Sedlec. Word spread quickly, and soon people across Europe wanted to be buried in what was now seen as sacred ground. The cemetery swelled with bodies, especially during the Black Death of the 14th century, when entire villages perished in weeks. Later wars only added to the devastation, filling the graveyard beyond its limits. By the 15th century, the monks faced a grim problem. The cemetery could hold no more bodies. They began exhuming old graves, moving bones into a crypt beneath the chapel. What started as storage soon transformed into something else entirely. Bones were not simply stacked or hidden away. They were arranged. Skulls formed precise towers. Ribs lined the walls in symmetrical patterns. The dead were displayed, not concealed. On the surface, this was explained as a memento mori, a reminder of mortality, meant to inspire prayer and humility. But the deeper one looks at the chapel, the harder that explanation becomes to accept. If the Bone Church was only about remembering death, why such deliberate artistry? Why build a chandelier that required at least one of every bone in the human body? Why create garlands and symbols that seem to follow exact mathematical patterns? Some historians argue that the monks were making a statement that all are equal in death, no matter their wealth or power. But among locals, another story grew. They whispered that the monks were not honoring the dead, but binding them. That the chapel was not a place of worship, but a prison made of human remains. Strange details seemed to support this suspicion. Certain skulls in the chapel bear markings, symbols carved into bone, impossible to mistake as natural damage. A few bones appear scorched, as though burned in rituals rather than in battle. Some skulls have deliberate holes drilled into them, as if they were used for strange experiments or ceremonies. Even more unsettling are the tales passed down through generations. Villagers claim to hear footsteps echoing from the chapel when no one was inside. Soldiers who camped nearby swore they saw candlelight flicker through the windows at night, though the doors were locked. Some spoke of hearing whispers, prayers in languages no priest recognized. And then there was the story of the blind monk. According to legend, one of the monks tasked with arranging the bones was blind, yet he claimed he could see the design he was meant to build. He told others that unseen hands guided him, that the bones spoke to him, commanding where they should be placed. His work became the foundation of the ossuary's most intricate designs, the chandelier and the great pyramids of skulls. To believers, this was proof that the Bone Church was not shaped by human imagination, but by something darker. Patterns hidden within the decorations add to the unease. The garlands of bones resemble wreaths, but when mapped, they form strange symbols, some resembling distorted crosses, others resembling sigils seen in medieval occult manuscripts. Was this coincidence or a hidden code left by the builders? The more researchers studied, the more disturbing the evidence became. Beneath the chapel lies a pit, a mass grave filled with bodies that seem to have been buried in haste. Unlike the carefully arranged skeletons above, these were chaotic, tangled, and broken. Some experts suggest they were plague victims. Others suspect something worse, that they were sacrifices, their deaths feeding the purpose of the chapel itself. The bone church, once seen as a curiosity, began to look like something far more ominous. The most chilling discovery came in the 20th century. While examining the ossuary's pyramids of skulls, researchers uncovered one that stood apart from the rest. Its surface was etched with symbols carved deep into the bone. They were not Christian crosses or decorative marks, but arcane patterns, geometric lines that matched no known language. This skull was not buried. It was placed deliberately at the heart of the pyramid, as if the entire structure was built around it. The implication was horrifying. The bone church may not have been created as art or devotion, but as a seal. The chandelier, built from every bone in the human body, was not just decoration. It was a lock, a binding meant to contain something unspeakable. If true, it would explain the whispers, the flickering lights, the oppressive weight felt by visitors standing beneath the chandelier. They were not imagining things. They were standing inside a prison, surrounded by the bones of those who died to create it. Today, the Bone Church of Sedlec stands as one of Europe's strangest monuments, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. Most leave with photographs, some with unease, and a few with stories of strange feelings they cannot explain. Official guides still speak of devotion, mortality, and art, but the other story, the one whispered for centuries, lingers in silence. If the chapel was truly a seal, then every skull and bone is part of a lock, holding something within. Something powerful enough to demand the deaths of thousands. Something dangerous enough that an entire church was built, not to honor it, but to keep it bound. Perhaps the truth will never be uncovered. Perhaps it is safer that way. For if the bone church was built as a warning, then the message is clear. There are secrets in this world that should never be disturbed. The next time you stand beneath its chandelier, look up. Every rib, every femur, every skull is part of a pattern older than memory. And the silence pressing against your chest may not be the weight of history. It may be the whisper of what still waits inside.